This year, our school theme is community. For our annual Design Day challenge, we asked our students to create solutions that will impact our school community. We recognize that at times we face challenges and believe that our students' creativity and insight will help us solve problems. The question on which we focused was, how might we craft innovative solutions that address the challenges faced by our teachers and staff? Students had the entire day to brainstorm and design solutions and build prototypes. We concluded our day with a panel of community members who asked probing questions on the class designs. Our day included empathy interviews using an empathy interview worksheet. Questions were student-generated, and each student took notes along the way. After the interview, classes had empathy synthesizer. This is a teacher-led activity using a graphic organizer to unpack the interview that they just had. As thoughts were being organized, students went on a field walk, venturing out to the location where the problem exists to better understand the environment that they were considering. Then they brainstormed 10 minutes of every possible solution imaginable, taking in the data they gathered from the empathy interview, synthesizer, and field walk. There was then time to ideate towards one design per class or per group. Designs went from paper to action through prototyping and presentation making. Finally, we concluded with presentations in front of a panel. Here's what our classes came up with. Our kindergartners were posed with the question, how might we create a better storage and organization system for lunch bags before and after recess? They interviewed 4th and 5th grade teacher, Cindy Van Gunda. The class created lunchbox bins under the community sign just by the playground. It would be on wheels in case it rains. One for kindergarten through 2nd grade, one through 3rd through 5th, and they would be 3.5 feet tall and 5 feet wide. Our 1st graders were posed with the question, how might we create fun and engaging activities for indoor recess that are not based on technology? They interviewed 2nd grade teacher Kayla Buchanan. They explored indoor recess options, including cornhole, and created a box that would sit in each room that would have games in it, such as coloring sheets, tic-tac-toe, cup stacking games, board games, and hopscotch that they could hide under the rug in the classroom. Our 2nd grade students interviewed Stephanie Osher, our school librarian, and asked her, how might we keep the library tidy and organized when so many students use it? One of the things that the class decided was to have late notices and checkout in the library to allow students to know when books weren't returned, to remind them to bring them in, and to allow all teachers to have access to the computer system to help students check out books. Our 3rd grade classes were asked the question, how might we help our school become more eco-friendly and take care of the planet? They interviewed Amy Goldkin and Sandra Reyes, and they decided that we really do want to become an eco-friendly school. They focused on how we can separate recycling, how we can use our composting station better, and have it enrich our gardens. They created an ad campaign to show what can be recycled and how to do so, including a comic strip for our younger students who might not yet be able to read. They also decided that we should have some recycling bins outside. Our 4th and 5th grade classes worked together. They interviewed Mrs. Bear, our Director of Student Services, and they asked the question, how might we find an easier and simpler way to schedule and talk with Mrs. Bear when she's needed? This is a perfect SEL, social emotional learning approach on how best to schedule time with Mrs. Bear. They created a Bear box, and you put your request in the box, and Mrs. Bear can evaluate and pull students based on the severity. Boxes would be placed around the building with different colored pieces of paper to know the severity of the problem of which they were dealing. Our middle school students interviewed Mr. Collier, our chief chicken tender, Scott Ostro, and Jill Cross. And they asked the question, how might we better include the chickens in our curriculum and in our programs? They created advertisements for students to join the Flock Force, created some incentives such as extra credit and volunteering hours, even a point system in order to earn rewards. They talked about special meal and recess time for being on the Flock Force, and the importance of singing to chickens. Another group in the middle school talked about the chicken coop functionality. They decided that we needed to repaint the chicken coop a brighter shade of red, and that if we added some lavender, it would soak up some of the moisture, add a little bit of a better fragrance, and get rid of some of the pesky bugs that tend to be around our chickens. Finally, the last group of middle school students created a chicken musical bridge to allow the chickens to go from one coop to the other. And as they walk across the suspension bridge, they would make music with cans that would make noise. They wanted there to be decorations, and they realized that chickens really are a vain creature and need mirrors to be able to look at themselves. All in all, throughout the day, our students worked incredibly hard, making this our most successful design day ever.